But in real life, if you pull on a thread, the rest of the shirt kind of pulls up with it. And that's kind of what soft selection does, in edge and in vertex mode. And I'll show you here just how it works. So I select these, and I have all four of them selected. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it, make sure my pinch and my slide, everything's set to 0. But I think I'll go ahead and connect it a good even number, maybe 8 times, segments. So now by hitting F to go to front view, actually I'm going to go to left by hitting L, and then I hit Z to zoom in on that area, G to turn off my grid. I'm then going to click on vertex mode, and I'm just going to select the center vertices here. And this is where I want everybody to understand what the soft selection does. Now I'm going to do it demonstratively first before I actually implement it into the model. And soft selection can be found over here, and it says soft selection. Now you'll notice immediately when you turn it on, the colors changed on the vertices, meaning that the coolest or the hottest colors, the warmest colors, have the most tension on them, as you can see here. And as you increase this value, it intensifies, so you can almost get an organic bend to it. Now I have 4 vertices selected only here, and I'll go back to perspective view and show you. Only the red vertices are selected. Everything else is just following wherever they go. Okay, so I can even use the scale tool here to do something like this. Now, if you wanted to do something like that, it's kind of creepy looking, but alright. So I hit L to go back to left view. And you also have something here with the soft selection called pinch. And you can see by the graph here exactly what it's going to do to your mesh. We have bubble, which increases the bubble of it. So if I went ahead and did scale like that, it's going to do some weird shapes. It's actually kind of something, it's a learning tool. It's like, what do you want to do with soft selection? How do you want your table leg to look? Well, in my instance here, I just want it to kind of go in a little bit. So I'm just going to pull this in. Now you see it's not affecting these at all, so I know I have to increase it. It's just by how I personally want it to look. So I just increase this value here, and I'll pull it in. Well, I'll increase it a little bit more. Right about there. Now since I wanted to have more of an organic shape, I'm then going to switch to my move tool, and I selected the row of vertices right, but 2 row of vertices right beneath it, and I'm going to pull those down. Okay. Now you'll notice also when I did that, this flat line right here kind of bowed out. You kind of want to avoid doing that. So if it is doing that, because you know this, you want this to sit flat on the floor, and if it is bowing out by doing that, it's not going to no longer sit flat on the floor. So I know, okay, my soft selection is too high. I'm just going to pull it back up to where those colors, which visually tell you what's going on, are not being affected by that. So I'm going to decrease that a little, and I'm just going to pull this down. Just about like that. Actually, no, a little bit more. Right about there. Now going back to perspective by hitting P, the front side of the actual table leg was not affected because I was just using one axis going up or down and out, left and right. Well, now I'm going to actually select here from the front view, and you may, when you create yours, you may create it in a different axis. So it may be left view for you, but in this case, this one is right view, or excuse me, front view. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this in here, and where I pulled that down before, I'm actually going to pull up this time. Alright, so there. Oh, where'd it go? So here we go. So there's roughly the table leg. Now all that work I was doing on this, it went ahead and did it with all the others too. That's why we make things instances. And it's a tool you'll actually really miss when you work with other 3D packages. Other 3D packages have it, but once you do change things like soft selection or even add modifiers to it, it tends to change things. Now I'm going to take this even a step further, is hitting Alt Q here to isolate this. I'm going to then I'm going to turn off soft selection. Very important. If you still see it looks like a rainbow in here, soft selection is turned on and it can affect a lot of things, see? So I'm going to make sure that's turned off, and I'm going to go ahead and select this set of polygons right there. Just that band. Now you do not have to make your legs look exactly like mine. I'm just showing you tools, and use those tools to make it look how you want it to look. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the Bevel Tool on this. And this is where I want to explain in greater detail the difference between group, local normal, and polygon. So in this case, I'm going to use what's called local normal, and it actually lets this bevel, let me zero it out, react to what is there. So it's kind of like a small indentation that goes in like that. So like that, I'll do that there. And I'll do the same with one of these polygons up here. Now here's the cool thing. 3ds Max remembers what your last values were. You saw that previously when you were connecting edges using pinch and slide. But it also does it for bevel. So if I want that to bevel the exact same way, all I got to do is select it. Now checking the other ones, they did the same thing. And that's pretty much it for that part of the table. But as tables are, we don't just have legs and we don't have just supports. We usually have a support beam that runs across the center. So rather than have to model a new one, I just select one of these boards I already have. I click left, it says left up here to go to left view. Hold down shift and make a copy of it. And rather than squeeze it to fit, I'm just going to rotate it. Now I want to rotate it 90 degrees, so I turn on angle snap by hitting A or clicking on the button up here. And I just rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm just going to move it into place. Right about there. Now it's going to be too long, too big, okay. Right, so let's go ahead and just use the scale tool to shorten it down again. There we go. Now it can intersect the mesh. Don't let anybody tell you it can't. So we do something like that. Now at this point I'm just going to name any one of these pieces table. Now at that point only that board right there is called table. But if I then have it selected and I right click and I go to attach and I just start clicking on everything else, it starts attaching it as one object. So I go attach. Oh, sorry, I have instances. Okay, let's see. Let me just fix something. I made a mistake earlier in the video. Don't worry about it. It's a mistake I doubt you'll make. There we go. Alright, here we go. Attach. There we go. Sometimes 3D Max does things you just don't expect. In fact, that was an instance where it just did that. It's not technically supposed to replicate that object, but so when I attached this thing, it wasn't working right. But now it did. Now it's called table, and it's all one solid object. We don't need to weld anything together. We can rotate it. We can scale it. We can do whatever we want with it. We can make a table now that looks like that, if you want. But now it's all one solid piece. But I'm not done with this. To make it a little more believable, the way tables were fashioned back then, they weren't held together with glue. They were held together with rivets and bolts. So in this case, where something across the middle would actually be something more tongue and groove type stuff, to actually hold the tabletop onto the support beams underneath, we would actually have metal nails that would be driven in and pressed, hot pressed into the wood. So to do that, we're going to create a sphere that's fairly low poly actually, and just any size at this point, because we'll scale it down and change the size later on. But I'm going to go ahead and hit M to drag a gray material on there. And as it is now, it's got 32 segments. You can see that over here, but I'm actually going to decrease that value to like, oh, let's see. Let's go ahead and just do 10 segments will work, because we're going to eliminate most of them. So once I got this segment set here, and I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. Okay, and then I got all my stuff here, vertex, edge, and everything. I'm going to delete every polygon from here down, and I only want these to remain. So I'm just going to delete those. Now even though that may not look like a rivet, if I render it, it looks like a little dome. Well, if I squish it just a bit, like that, and then shrink it, now it enables me to place it on the table right over that support beam. Where's that support beam? I'm going to hit L to go to my left view here, and I'm just going to go ahead and add it right there. Hit P for perspective, and I want it to intersect with the table just a bit and make it a bit smaller here. And see, it's just a matter of pulling it up and lifting it. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I want to make sure that it actually would appear as if it's going straight down into the wood. So I'm going to hold down shift to make a copy there. Okay, let's just go do these as copies for now. And I'm going to do the same across every board here. So I'm going to, let's say this one will have 3, so I'll just go 2 actually, because we already have 1. And there we go. Now I'm going to evenly space these apart just so it looks a little more believable. Well, there we go. That's the space I want. Now I'm just going to shift copy both of them across. and keep going. Now this won't it's not just to create rivets or anything. It's to create other objects you want multiples of, that are very small. You do not want a lot of, what do you call it, geometry in it, because something that's so small, you do not want a lot of polygons on there. Unless you're going to make a film where the player gets down on the table and you see all the grooves and rivets and all the little nasties that are part of this piece of metal, you generally want to keep these very low in polygon count. So I'm going to select those now and bring those over to there. Right about there, just so it matches up. Now I'm going to select these all together, but you'll notice when I clicked and dragged around them, I selected the table. Well, the quickest way to select multiple objects is select a bunch of them, pull those over there, and just deselect the rest of the things. There. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll click and drag, and I selected the table, but I'll hold down Alt to deselect the table, just to have the bolts remaining, and I'll just move them over here. And they're still selected. I'll hold and make a copy over here. Now while they're not connected to the table at all, here's the table still. I missed something. I'm then going to just click attach. Now rather than click on the word attach, I'm actually going to use the dialog box, and it's going to open up this. This is where you can select a lot of objects and just hit attach. Now everything we have in this scene right here is connected and named correctly as table. And this table is done.